Not every wealth strategy works for every person. Your personality has a money blueprint, and once you see it, everything clicks. MoneyCareer.app combines ancient Chinese astrology and psychometric profiling to show you where your natural strengths are and where you have been working against yourself. The quiz is free, and if you want the full deep dive report, it's less than $5. Go to moneycareer.app and take yours now. That's moneycareer.app. Welcome to Fiery Femmes, the podcast where high-achieving women build wealth, redesign their careers, and create lives with real freedom. I'm Shauna, an accredited investor, former tech sales professional, and the founder of Fiery Femmes. After a decade across global SaaS, startups, and my own reinventions, I realized the most powerful thing a woman can have is optionality. So, in every episode, we explore the future of work, the psychology of wealth, and the practical strategies that help women build careers and lives that evolve as fast as they do.
Shauna, thank you so much for preparing for your time. I'm so excited to record this because, as you mentioned, it is quite a talent-rich environment. So I think a lot of our folks in tech and those high income roles are going to be very interested to hear from what you have to say.
Yeah, the Claude workshop was pretty great, wasn't it? I've actually been using it quite extensively since. I've signed up for the monthly membership and it's been great, just kind of developing workflow. So yeah, I thought that was really good because before when I went into that event, I wasn't too sure. I knew there was obviously Claude chat, but I just actually think, looking at Claude co-work and Claude Code was just really, really valuable.
Amazing.
So I use Claude Co-work and Claude Chat to write the code for me. I was using Base 44 apps. You can actually get Claude Code to write the code for you to build the app. So yeah, there's just been a lot of experiments that I've done. But it's really cool because obviously working in tech, you can kind of see what's actually done behind the scenes and you can even get to kind of do it yourself, which is really interesting. Production. So it's really cool.
I love it. I've gone through the process of linking Stripe payments for sure.
Good.
Yeah, so like created a few, and my choice of vibe coding tool is Lovable,
Okay.
and just like playing around with that. And similar to you, how I use Claude is I'll create like the wireframes, the concept, like testing it and like reasoning with Claude and myself, and creating the prompt for Lovable.
Yeah.
Yeah, very,
Yeah.
very, very. Look at us doing all this.
I know, because I was just playing around with Claude Code and then it was saying I needed to download Node.js for something. And even kind of just like experiencing that. And then I was like, right, okay, I'll just download it, see what happens, And then I was like downloading Node.js and then I had that on my laptop and then I was able to see how you can kind of code them with Node.js. And it's just something I've never really been exposed to and haven't spent the last 5 years, speaking to developers, engineers, testing engineers day in, day out. It was just so cool to actually just see that on my screen, and to just experiment with that myself.
Yeah, definitely. A lot happening now, and especially like there's so much development in that space that I feel like whatever we knew a few weeks ago when we met in that workshop is probably outdated by now.
Yeah, literally.
But so, Shauna, just to introduce you to the audience, you're a recruiter at Talent Web and you specialize in technical talent.
Yeah, that's right. So I've been working in the recruitment space for about 5 years and specifically specialize on recruiting for software engineers, data engineers, architects, and now AI. So that kind of crosses a bit of machine learning and stuff as well. So kind of everything that's quite, you'd say, like hard tech. Recruit all across that space. And again, because the market is changing so quickly, the landscape for technology is changing so quickly, I think it's a good thing, to be kind of across.
Yeah, for sure. And before we dive deep, I was like very tempted to just like get into the nitty gritty. But what is something, obviously, LinkedIn's all what we use, especially as a recruiter, right? What is something that is not on your LinkedIn?
Well, something, but I actually probably is, but I came from a finance background. So I was actually a qualified financial advisor, done my exams for my QFAs in Ireland, they're called. So qualified financial advisor, graduated with a first class honours in business and commerce. Back at home, moved out to Australia when I was 24 from Ireland, Dublin. So I've been here for 7 years, absolutely loving it. I've travelled pretty much all of Australia except Adelaide. I've not been to Adelaide yet, but it's on my list. Yeah. So I've got a camper van with 10 of my girlfriends. We drove down from Darwin in the Northern Territory all the way down to Perth. And we've done the East Coast. We've went to Melbourne, Tasmania. So yeah, I like to travel. And I actually love country music as well. I'm always at every country music concert. So that's probably not on my LinkedIn either.
So would you say that you've been to Tamworth during their music festival week?
I have been to Tamworth. It's great. And I went to, have you heard of CMC? It's in Ipswich, I think it's called. It's an hour outside of Brisbane. Really good. So it's actually like Tamworth on steroids, I would say. So you've got really good country music artists. So have you heard of Riley Green?
No, I'm not a country.
All right,
music.
okay, yeah.
I'll listen to like the pop country, which probably there's a lot more country music, but I would listen to like, is it Teddy Swims? Like, for me that's country, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, he's kind of country, yeah. Well, I'd recommend it. CMC is like a music festival. No one seems to know about it in Australia, but it's like it actually goes on for a week, so you can camp there for a week. But me and one of my friends, we just went for 3 days, so 3 nights camping, and you wake up and you're just waking up to country music singers on the stage, but they're very reputable, like they're quite big artists that attend. So yeah, that's really good. But Tamworth as well is brilliant.
What a vibe. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. And definitely you're missing out. Go to Adelaide. I mean, it's winter now as well. One of my favorite cities. I'll send you a list like when you go. But like such a great time. McLaren Vale, amazing wines. But it's also because they also have a good nightlife.
Right, okay.
Which I was so surprised, but because they didn't have lockout laws. Had like lockout laws since 2014, 2015. So the culture of nightlife has changed, as you can see. But Adelaide didn't have that. So it's a great time.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely put it on the list. 100%.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you for that. Again, I wanted to talk to you about like the talent landscape right now, especially with like the business owners, what kind of candidates that they're looking for. And, with like AI and technology moving at the moment, what's the vibe of the business owners at the moment on the talent that they're looking for?
Yeah, so it's definitely, the goalposts are definitely moving as we discussed before. Things like literally the requirements are just changing every day, and you're kind of looking at, so it depends on where the business is at in terms of the maturity with AI, I would say, or just even their maturity within the technology landscape as well. So you'll find like a lot of kind of businesses where their core competency isn't specifically technology or software. So like maybe property companies, just, some sales companies, wherever like technology isn't their core competency, they probably haven't even gone through a digital transformation yet. So that's like kind of moving over from legacy technology, having a lot of technical depth, and moving over to more kind of modern tech stack. So I think those kind of businesses are a little bit struggling because they don't know where to start in terms of the requirements and what they're looking for, because they're still working on such a legacy outdated platform. And then they're trying to keep up to date with AI and stuff as well. But obviously you can't be like executing like excellent AI platform or product or initiative if you haven't even kind of updated your current legacy platform, and then in terms of like your startup, scale ups, those companies that are definitely more kind of technology adaptable, in terms of what they're looking for, I'd say it's like there's a whole new range of roles that we're seeing at the moment. So AI has created a lot of different roles. So you're seeing like AI engineer, there's a lot of requirement for data engineers, because data is like the most valuable kind of resource that you have in AI, because if the data models aren't right, then the AI is not going to be right. So it's kind of building those data models first. There's a lot around AI governance as well, because there's obviously going to be so much. I don't think we've actually seen the repercussions yet, but I think there's going to be a lot like kind of repercussions and security and everything like that we're going to see as a result of AI. Like I know there's some companies in the news now that are in the media that are like under the microscope that are being looked at in terms of the way that they're working with AI, just to make sure it's legal. So I think there is a lot around technical governance. So there's those newly created roles, first of all. And then second of all, in terms of the type of candidate that they're looking for. So we're seeing AI is able to automate a lot of tasks now. Combank has actually got rid of their testing function altogether. So yeah.
Really? When did that happen?
A few months ago now, I'd say probably about 4 or 5 months ago, it started, and now they're continuing to kind of get rid of people. I know they went through a lot of redundancies, and a lot of testing people left, or people that were contracting, their contracts were renewed. And then just speaking to other candidates in that space, they've mentioned that they're actually asking the testers to move over into an engineering role. So they want this testing candidate to be a full stack engineer or some type of engineer, and then just do testing in addition to the engineering. So yeah, that's due to just a lot of testing being automated, and there's other functions within the software development lifecycle that has been automated too. So I think what really clients are looking for across the board is just kind of having that candidate that's more, has an entrepreneurial mindset, good business acumen, has those soft skills, has, that ability to think critical at an enterprise level, and very solution focused holistically across the board, whether it be enterprise, technical solutions, dealing with difficult stakeholders within the business. So the bar has definitely risen for the expectations for a lot of candidates in the technology space. I think as well, like previously, before AI, it was like, the general kind of consensus of a engineer or someone in technology is they kind of come in and they code, and they kind of sit in the background. They don't really integrate with the rest of the business. So we're definitely seeing that shift now because of AI, and, hires are becoming more critical as well. And it's definitely kind of like a client market where there's a lot more candidates on the market than there is to the number of jobs. So I think that, yeah, the bar has definitely risen, and they want someone that is, as I said, entrepreneurial and at that enterprise level, everything that I've just listed there. In addition to being very technical savvy as well.
Yeah, there you go. So soft skills are definitely more in demand now. That's what I'm hearing now. I saw that apparently, what was it? Like girls in, is it social marketing, PR, girls in spam are like the new girls in STEM.
Okay.
Because not back in the days, like there was a huge push for being technical, like the analysis part, the technical skills developing. But again, those are the tasks that's getting automated. Whereas being social, soft skills, it's so hard to replicate. So yeah, definitely being social is having a moment.
It really is, yeah. And I think that's a great thing about, the events that myself and yourself met at, is actually going out and, meeting people and, being in the room and having those conversations, asking those questions. I think that's what really makes, someone stand out in this market as well, is just kind of that curiosity as well, that you're not able to get out of AI if the companies are saying we don't need engineers, we can just get AI to do it. But I think, it's not going to go down that route at all. I think, that human touch that is actually brought into a company and brought into, working on a specific project, I think there's a lot more that humans can give that AI can't.
Massively. I have a lot of technical friends. One runs a web dev agency, and he's getting a lot more requests to fix code,
Yeah,
like from vibe coding tools. So I think it's going full circle.
exactly. And I think there's so much noise as well in the market at the moment. So like we're all for posting on LinkedIn and everything, but I think, if you open Instagram, if you open any kind of platform at the moment, it's just someone selling their product, and it's something maybe that, there's so much more, as I said, noise, and there's so much more products out there because people are able to kind of jump on and build something end to end using AI. So I think it's just also a matter of kind of a sprint to see who's get there quickest. But I think you'll always need, like, someone that has that deep technology understanding as well, as opposed to just being able to vibe code an app. Like even that app I said I vibe coded on, I'm like, okay, I need someone now to actually help me with this because I don't know what to do now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm always doubtful. So I don't want to get any details with like the tools that I vibe coded. I'm careful not to take any personal details because I don't want to be responsible for the data, for all the GDPR compliance stuff. Yeah,
It's
no way.
crazy, isn't it? And that comes back to the requirement for governance as well that we're probably going to see. It's probably, all these companies are coming in and implementing AI initiatives and rolling things out, and then actually not doing their due diligence around, all the GDPR. A lot of companies are implementing that without doing their due diligence. And then I think that's going to be a major repercussion that we're going to see is, things being audited and just kind of saying like, well, you haven't followed any of the legislation here. And Yeah, I think that's going to be massive, to be honest.
Huge, huge. So I had to Google it. I'm having flashbacks of me completing my GDPR compliance when I was at LinkedIn. It's
Oh,
the General Data Protection Regulation.
right. Okay. Yeah. Because I remember I was actually working in a bank at the time and that was implemented in Ireland. And I don't know how I can't remember that, but I remember just being literally drilled into my mind.
I think at the time all the companies had to scramble because there was like a timeline for it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, so going back, I wanted to ask because you must see a lot of CVs now, and there I know that with ChatGPT and like CVs, there's apparently a big spike of applications that look perfect. Like they look like they're the perfect candidate because you can
Mm.
tailor it very easily. How do you filter out those like ChatGPT or Claude generated CVs?
Yeah, I think like I wouldn't even say they're perfect now, to be honest. I'd say the ones that are done on ChatGPT just aren't perfect at all because the minute you look at a resume, you're able to distinguish if this is written by AI. Firstly, you've obviously got your long M dashes that everyone's aware of. So if you're not taking the M dashes out of your CV and you use ChatGPT, then that's a red flag. What a lot of candidates are doing are they are using the JD, the job description, and then they're putting in their experience and they're saying, write me a resume based on this job description, and then they're applying for it. So you'll also see a lot of the key words and the key requirements are highlighted in bold as well, because it's like ChatGPT telling you this is what I've done for you. You know, these are the words that we've put on to highlight. So there's that. And you've got like these ridiculous emojis and stuff as well all over the resume and
Wait,
ChatGPT.
there are emojis in the CV.
Yeah, yeah. There's like just like even in the personal details, you can tell there's like the phone, and then you've got the email emoji, and yeah, and it's just written in the same font. I don't know what the font is, but it's ChatGPT. But you can literally tell when you open the resume because I think like yeah. So the way to kind of distinguish that is yeah, just those for first instance, like you can tell straight away. It's also written in like a very kind of like paragraph blocky format, which just isn't
Hmm.
good. Like you're not really telling the story of your experience. And I'm just seeing so many candidates sell themselves short because of this. In particular, like it's difficult for a lot of C-level candidates or more senior candidates that have so much experience. And I
Hmm.
do definitely sympathize with that and understand that. With a lot of candidates, it is hard to put all your experience into one resume. And look, sometimes it is good just to kind of do 3 different resumes for, one thing, like whether it's like a manager role you're applying for or hands-on, because it's not lying, it's not fabricating anything, but it is, again, I would rather you do that in a difficult job market and highlight that experience than just use a really vague resume, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, like, so I think, and even now when you just see a resume that's not written by ChatGPT, you're like, yes, when someone has actually sat down and, spent time and really kind of thought about, okay, look at each role, your most recent roles in the last 6-7 years and really remember, okay, what did I actually achieve when I was there? I don't want to just see like 2 lines about what you done because of course you're going to have done that, that's obvious. But like the key thing that people want to see, hiring managers want to see is, you write out your responsibilities, but you really think about what it is you do. You don't just get AI to write it for you because AI doesn't know what you've achieved. Like if you don't, so you need to really think about, right, this is what I've done. I had this amount of people reporting to me. I grew a team from like, a team of 5 people to a team of 50 people. How did you do that? You were involved in the recruitment process. And then I always say to candidates, always, have the key achievements under your responsibilities and use statistics to back up those achievements. We want to see key statistics to be like, okay, you've increased the customer base by 50% due to a project that you've worked on, or you've saved the company, a particular a certain amount of money or whatever because of this project, or how many users were using this, stats, because that's what people in the technology domain love to see. Like, wow, this is great. Like, you've done this. And it's important to also put in your individual contribution as well. So, a lot of these kind of vague ChatGPT generated resumes will just kind of say, this is what we done. But it's like, what did you actually do? Like, this is you applying for the role. You're not applying for the role with your team, And that's why resumes are so, so important. And even now I'm, speaking to, again, a lot of really senior candidates, and they just don't understand why they have to do a resume because they've never had to do one before. And because
Yeah.
the market's very difficult, like, and honestly, I've really, really sympathized with people now in this job market. It's really, really difficult, particularly in technology. And people would have just got jobs before by, being poached out of the company and they were so sought after they didn't have to do a resume. but it is a really competitive market at the moment. And that's just your first starting point is your resume, because it's your first impression. So you want to give off the best first impression possible. And hiring managers, I will tell you now, are being literally looking through resumes with a fine-tooth comb, because gone are the days where people are saying the hiring manager doesn't even look at your resume. Trust me, they do, because they know it's a candidate-rich market, and they know they have their pick of, who they can get. So they're literally, this is a great time for them to get the best possible person for the role.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So you said that first one to kind of like help you filter out CVs is the M dashes. So
Yeah.
the M dashes just dead giveaway. Emojis, block style, like long paragraph way of writing, the font, not just like very generic
Mm.
way of saying things
Yeah.
kind of in line with the job description. Okay.
Like, for example, for an engineer, maintain and develop, whatever code they were doing. It's like, well, obviously you've done that. But it's like, what substance? Like, you want to see substance, you want to see something that makes you stand out. And again, using statistics and your key achievements and your individual contribution really stands to that. And that's across all domains, not just technology as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do for me, I do feel bad for recruiters now because I can just imagine the amount of CVs that you actually get. And maybe there are like the advanced people who can use AI better. Like one of the prompts is like remove M dashes. Now, how do you identify top talent in this candidate-rich market? And how do you then approach that interview process?
Yeah. Well, look, for me, I think the source of my candidates, it doesn't usually come from job applications. I think anybody that's recruiting in the engineering or AI space will kind of know that as well. Like, the way I find my candidates is, my pipeline, the relationships that I've built over the years, again, attending the network events, getting to know people and kind of, meeting them face to face and having that rapport with them and having that discussion, that they're quite good candidates. Also, we have to headhunt candidates a lot. Good candidates are always going to be in demand. And I've had a lot of clients say to me, oh, well, Atlassian have let people go. We'll just hire someone from Atlassian. I'm like, right, okay, go hire someone from Atlassian, because they've done redundancies. But I'm trying to say, that wasn't all engineering. That was like a mix of everything. And good candidates, once they start applying in engineering or AI engineering or whatever it is, they'll always have like a list of 5 or 6 offers on the table that they can choose from. So again, it comes back to that relationship building and actually knowing that candidate and knowing your client so well and knowing that it is going to be a good fit, because you're not going to put them forward if it's not a good fit culturally, or, if it doesn't align to their aspirations. But yeah, for me, it's basically, I wouldn't kind of spend that long looking through applications. And again, a lot of good candidates aren't actually active in the market. They're more so passive. So if you give them a call, they'll say, well, what have you got for me? What's it about? What do they do? And blah, blah, blah. And I think, a lot of people are saying now that I'm hearing a lot of complaints from candidates saying that they'll apply for jobs and that the ATS is just kind of fecking them over really. And, that they don't believe in the process anymore. And it's kind of a broken process, it seems. So yeah, I think it's more so like, I would say, I think recruiters are actually really, really good. And I think they get a lot of bad rep. I don't know why, but I think some of them do. But I think to actually work with a recruiter and have them put your resume before to a client is really good, because if I was to speak to a candidate and then they send me through a resume and I'm like, I'm not putting that forward. So I'm like, you can take the time out to fix that. Here's how you fix it. Here's an example resume. Send it back to me and I'll review it. And then we'll do that and then I'll put it forward. And, this has happened so many times where when I've received resumes, again, ChatGPT written or just quite poorly written. And then I've gone back, several times with one candidate and just kind of said, this is what you need to do. And I can't put it forward until then. We've only got one shot at making this right. And that's happened so many times where that candidate, and I've known, just because I've known that candidate, I know they're good. I've spoken to them on the phone. I would have met them previously and I vouch for them. So I know I can put them in front of this client. But if the client reads the resume and it's not kind of aligned to what they're looking for, then it's just going to go, they're just not going to get the opportunity. So I think, yeah, it's just so important to just kind of think yourself about what you've done and not rely on AI.
Yeah, definitely. Because you know better about what your experience is as well.
What's that say?
You definitely know better about your experience, what your actual experience is.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I say. I'm just like, you have to kind of think and you to be like, right, what did I do there? What was I proud of when I, worked there and the responsibilities and what I achieved? And AI is not going to know that.
Yeah,
Unique to you.
absolutely.
It's unique to your own experience.
Have that storytelling. And I also think that you have to be creative. If it's a top
Mm.
company that you really want to work at, like, I don't know, send them flowers, send them a cake, a cupcake, go into their building. Sometimes it's just that FaceTime as well and that like that
Yeah.
ability to showcase. There's a company that I would love to work at maybe in the
Okay.
next few months or something. But I'm just like, I've reached out to like their growth person
Oh,
blank, and I'm just like thinking I'm gonna Google their HQ like address and send something in that office. But just like if you really want that
yeah. You
company
able
and
to
to
say the
be
name of it?
there,
Yeah.
hey,
Are you able to say the name of the company? I'm dying to know now. Oh, yeah. Are they coming to Australia?
I think there are signals that they would come to Australia, like they're building their ambassadors in Australia. I should really apply to be an ambassador, but I like because I use the product and like I've built so many projects
Yeah.
on top of that. Like I've seen their growth as well. I have some ties with like the VC accelerator that like they got
Wow.
seed funding with. So I'm just like I would love to work there, but either
Yeah.
like I would have to move to Europe or
Do
wait
it.
to get there. Yeah, but anyway, I'm just
Good
like
though. I think
yeah.
that's like, just even kind of that mindset and how much you love the products and how much, you've used it. Like, that's great. Why wouldn't they want you to work for them? Do you know what I mean?
We'll see. But that's the thing. It's people stop at like the first rejection. But if you really, really want to work at that company, like go all out.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. I think even, going back to your point, like face-to-face interviews are so important now. I think if you're given
Huge.
the opportunity to do a face-to-face interview over a Teams interview, do the face-to-face. And I know it's difficult, obviously, if you can't get time off work or whatever, or a lot of people are working from home now, so usually they can make it work. But I've seen that the results and the success rates in terms of going for a face-to-face interview in comparison to doing it over Teams, just you can put your personality across. You can, you know, yeah, I think it's just about getting like storytelling and getting your personality across, showing that you are, a likable person rather than just getting on a Teams call and just kind of going through the regular interview process. Just little things like doing the handshake that you do when you come in and being able to give that eye contact, body language, actually seeing the office as well. And, there's just so much to it.
So much. They say that the data was it's 7 video calls to 1 face to face. That's the amount of that's like the speed of rapport building that you get if you meet someone face to face.
Exactly. And then even as well, I've had candidates that have gone in for interviews face to face and they might have just bumped into the CEO in the lobby, or I've met the CIO, CTO, or whatever it is. And, that that person, whoever you met, can vouch for you as well. I'm like, oh, that guy seems really cool. That girl seems really great. So yeah, that's another thing I definitely recommend for anyone that is trying to find their next ideal role.
Question. If a candidate asks about work from home in the first meeting or interview, is that a red flag?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it depends. Obviously, it depends on how they've gone about the application. So if someone's working with me, I will always tell them what the work from home situation is, because obviously I'll know that, and ask the recruiter that, or ask the internal talent acquisition. Or if there's someone else to ask other than the hiring manager, ask them. Before you go, because also you want to know what the work from home situation is before you dedicate your time and that to actually attending an interview if they don't align to whatever your requirements are. So I'll always tell a candidate before when I speak to them, for example, if I have a client that you need to be in Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, and that's just the way it is. Unfortunately, there's no negotiations. This is the way that they are set up. And everybody loves a bit of flexibility, but this is just what this client is looking to do. And they're the one paying at the end of the day. So it's you kind of just have to get on board with it. And then there's other clients that are just more flexible and they're happy for someone to come in, 2 days a week, and that could be whatever, and that's fine. But I'll always set those expectations at the start. And sometimes when I get a candidate that goes into an interview and they ask about the work from home situation, I would have said, I've told you this, and like, it doesn't look good on you, it doesn't look good on me. We've had this conversation. I'll confirm it in an email before I represent them for the role, and just say this is the requirements, because you don't want it to get down the track and someone's offered the role and then they can't do those specific days, and it's like, come on, like this is what I've literally said from the start. So I think don't ask that in an interview. I think if there is someone that you can ask that might have screened you for the interview before, ask them rather than the hiring manager.
Yeah, got it. Got it. There you go. So, thank you for that. I think I like being in person, in office, but I think certainly like if you're looking for a role, but I guess if you really want that role, fine. But at the same time, if it weeds out the people who are actually like not that flexible. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I think like absolutely, I think work from home is a great opportunity to have. And I think there's so many benefits of it. But I just think, it depends, like it's case by case basis. I think some hiring managers can say, why did they ask me about the work from home situation? Like they should know that already. So I think it's just good to, kind of know your audience, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And what would you say is one of the things about recruitment? And I understand recruitment because it was so emphasized during my early career. I sold to HR, heads of HR, both at CEB in their HR practice and LinkedIn. So really did understand. I think most people kind of not value HR, but actually it's so costly and so difficult to get. It's so difficult to get right. So
Mm,
when it comes to hiring, recruitment, onboarding,
mm,
we talked about like the cost of hiring the wrong person and the onboarding mistakes, and obviously like offboarding and then hiring a new person and training again. Can you tell us a little bit on how you help prevent that?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think, again, it kind of comes back to the type of company that you're working with. So I would work with a range of different companies from your pre-seed startups up to Series A. So a lot kind of more established, a little bit more mature, up to your kind of larger enterprises and like companies that are, well established, they'll have HR and they'll have those really kind of streamlined onboarding processes. So I think you're looking at like your pre-seed startup, you'd have like a founder or two founders and it's chaotic. And it's just really, really important to continue to emphasize to the founders that you're working with. This kind of goes from all startups, just say, that you need to get your first hire is very, very critical, or your first few hires are very critical in this stage. I was reading a Seek survey from February, and it said that the cost of actually getting a hire wrong for a small medium enterprise is around 16 to 18 grand. So like that's the cost of getting it incorrect, and what companies could do at this stage is they can hire someone and they could be the best person for the job. But again, if the onboarding process, if they've not implemented a smooth and streamlined onboard process, the candidate can get in and be like, wow, this place is a bit less. What's happening here? I wasn't given my laptop on the first day. I wasn't having my user logins. I wasn't able to work for the first 2 or 3 days because my tech wasn't working. And then they have like the pressure on them of being able to deliver, but the tech's not working, and just kind of having that like streamlined process. And then, from series, like for a kind of more mature company, from Series A or whatever, you'll see that companies have started to implement people of culture, or they've brought in a HR person, and then their requirement is just kind of to streamline the process a bit more. But again, like I do see it when, there's so much to do, and like candidates come in on day one and they're just thrown completely in the deep end. And that's, definitely communicate to them that it is a fast paced environment and so on. But I think, you also need to be respectful of, and understand where the candidates are coming from in on the first day. I think, looking at something like a buddy system is really good, just to make sure they're getting that continuous feedback that, people coming in that like they want to do well, the majority of people want to be set up for success. This is their career, so it's good to, implement things like a one-on-one every month, or just kind of get that constructive feedback from candidates as well, because they obviously want to come in and succeed, but you're as the company is liable to set them up for success for as well as the candidate is, So yeah, just having those conversations day in, day out, and just reminding clients that, you need to do your job too in this sense. And, a lot of companies are really good for that. But I think a lot of companies at that kind of startup scale up phase more so struggle with it. Whereas companies that are definitely like more mature, they know the ropes, they know how it works, and they've learned from the mistakes and so on. But again, the market keeps changing. So it's just up to people like myself to continuously to have those conversations with them to, say this is where the market's at, this is what candidates want, this is what they don't want, and letting them go from there.
Huge. Yeah, having a great onboarding that it's smooth, it's like ready to go. The amount of times that I've heard people like, I guess like complain, like they go into this really nice, well-paid job and then they get into the company and it's like, I don't know who to ask about XYZ. This system, this data system that I need to use is not set up. Like the tools are not set up. So you're paying for a world-class talent. Have the world-class like process after that to take care of and make sure that they stay as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And, again, it comes back to the point that a lot of these kind of top tier candidates, they're always going to have people approach them for roles as well. So if you've gone through all that, effort to get them in the door, to do the interviews, to, finish the process and actually have them in the doors, get the paper signed, you want to keep them, and it's your job now to retain that best talent and kind of get that, build that relationship, build that trust with them as well. And that's where you find most people are just so happy in their workplace, is when they know that their employer values them and trusts them, and it makes them want to stay.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's great to hear. And would you say that the kind of companies that you work for, you mentioned earlier, they're typically startups and scale-ups?
Mm,
And would you work with pre-seed founders?
yeah.
Or usually, yeah, okay, okay, cool.
Yeah, so a lot of pre-seed founders, and you're gonna see it's quite chaotic because they are growing at. Some of them will be growing at quite a rapid rate, and they just don't. That's like a really difficult thing for them guys, because they just don't. It seems like they don't have the time or the resources or whatever it is, just to kind of like or I mean, sorry, just to get candidates booked in for an interview, because they've got so much else going on. And I think it's, I actually really enjoy working with those companies, just because they do really value you, and they know, you know your stuff. And, I've worked with companies that have been pre-seed and now they're like Series A, they've been listed on the IPO, they've moved over to the US, they're in San Fran. And like, that's just really, really great to see. And you'll always kind of open up your LinkedIn or the news and you'll see really cool stuff about, what they've achieved. You're just thinking, that's great, I've actually worked with them. And then obviously, like, as they grow, they'll probably get HR implemented, or they're growing it overseas. So yeah, sometimes you don't continue to work with them, but it's just actually, actually been able to say, oh, I've actually, grew their team, which is really cool.
Yeah, I know, that's amazing and great to hear it as well, because especially like when they're growing, just different things are needed. So that's very inspiring to hear. Now, I wanted to ask you, you've been in finance before, which is
Yeah.
amazing. I want to quickly touch on that. What would you say? Did you work with the accumulators or the?
So I was actually doing underwriting at a captives bank previously at home. And then I did my qualified financial advisor exams. So wasn't actually doing the financial advice side of things when I was working.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Well, from studying that and from being exposed to that environment, what would be your top advice for, I guess, like women trying to build their wealth? What's a good industry to go to?
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, in terms of what I do, I think that to build my wealth, I've just become very focused on it really in just this year, really, which is probably isn't great. But I think, before I was all about live your life and travel and just enjoy your time here as well. I came over when I was 24, so I was quite young. And, you're moving, you're immigrating to the country. So you have to set yourself up, you have to pay for visas. There's a lot of cost when you're moving country, and like you can only work in specific companies. You can't actually, when you're on a working holiday visa, you can't work for a company for longer than 6 months, which I'm sure people that might be listening probably would have experienced as well. So it's hard to kind of find your feet. And to be honest, that's how I got into recruitment, because when I was doing underwriting and I'd studied finance at home, I couldn't actually get sponsored or get a visa in that role in Australia, because the legislation and the tax and everything was so different. So they didn't actually stand to me over here. And then I was actually working for NAB Trade, so the investment platform, before I got into recruitment. And then I got into recruitment so I could get sponsored, really. And now I put through my permanent residency, so I'm waiting on that. So in the last year or so, I've definitely kind of looked into and educated myself, listened to podcasts like this around how to upskill and kind of build that long-term wealth. So I've opened my ComSec account, my ComSec international trading account. I've been investing in ETFs. I've been speaking to people in that space and just seeing, what are good ETFs to invest in. We all probably know there's no cheat code to get rich. So it's that kind of long-term gain and that compound, building that compound return, that compound interest. Again, like, recruitment is a good space to save money if you're doing good. You get quite good commission. So I got a few good commission checks as well. So I've just literally learned. Old me would have just booked a flight to Europe and just live my best life and try and get for Spritz. But now I'm like, I put all my commission away and it's money that I don't have. and I'll invest in it. I'll invest that commission check. Or I have also looked into buying an investment property as well. So I spoke to a mortgage broker around that. And I would love to get on the property market. It's scary because I would be doing it myself, and you need all that kind of, discretionary, you need more discretionary income if something goes wrong with the property or whatever. So it's a bit of a scary subject. It's a kind of a bit of a scary thing for me to go for, but I do have it on my list that it is something I want to do, is get an investment property, but I need to wait on my PR to come through. So I just think like the advice I would give is definitely like budget yourself. I didn't do that before, and now I've started to do it. And when you actually see your balance go up and you're working towards that financial freedom or just that like independence that you have as a woman as well, and knowing that no matter what happens that you're able to look after yourself. I think it's, moving over from Ireland has definitely taught me that as well, and not really having anything to fall back on. So I just think it's so important to just do your research, open that ComSec account, even if it's Vanguard, just invest in whatever ETF that you can, something simple that's going to give you a good return on investment long term. And yeah, just do your research.
I love it, Shauna. That's amazing advice. And I love that investment properties in your bucket to what to do in the future. Definitely can talk to you about that. I bought a few myself. Yeah, so I'm happy to talk about that maybe on a separate time. But now, final question. What is something that you'd stop telling young women in tech?
I would tell them, be confident, back yourself. Like, it's just so important. Like, there's such a, like, the gender pay gap, to just put it into perspective at the moment, is actually 21.1%. So that is a pay gap in terms of what women get less than men. So for every dollar that a man earns, a woman earns 79 cents, which actually equates to like 28, 29 grand per year. So it's important to, in order to close that, I think there's been a lot of noise. There's been a lot of kind of advocacy for it, but there's been no execution. And to be honest, it's actually continuing to get worse instead of better. So I think the main thing that I would tell women in tech or women in the workforce is just to back yourself. And, you've got every right to be in the room just as much as anyone else. And, the majority of companies are really like on board, and they will be very supportive and so on. But unfortunately, there's a lot, particularly in technology, that aren't, because it is so heavily male dominated. And yeah, I think it's just important to tell them that, they deserve to be in that room, that they need to do their research on salaries as well. Look and really kind of do your due diligence in terms of what candidates in your market are getting, both male and female. I think it's a thing, around finance yourself. You probably know that it's good for women to speak about their salaries and talk about what they're on, and it shouldn't be such a taboo subject, because I see it myself. I'll speak to a female engineer and I'll say, what are you after? And I'm like, well, she's great. How is she only on this much, And then I'll tell them, I'm like, no, you should be on more than this and don't accept less than that. So for some reason, it's just like they don't actually have, females seem to not have as much kind of confidence or backing themselves when they're actually talking around salaries or, what their experience is. And, no dissing like men or anything like that. It's just the way it is. It seems to be that they have no problem kind of going in and being able to tell everything that they've done, being really confident. But maybe it's because of the fact that, it is heavily male dominated, that women might initially or naturally just feel a little bit less confident, and then they're not able to kind of be as confident in asking for pay rises or when in the interview process, and really able to sell themselves. So I think it's just about telling them be confident and that you deserve to be in the room.
Perfect. And also to negotiate. I think that's what you were saying as well. Definitely negotiate, do your research.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, I feel like when you're in recruitment or sales or whatever it is, you kind of just negotiate on everything. So it comes so naturally to you. But yeah, like sometimes I forget it doesn't come that naturally to obviously candidates that you're working with, but always negotiate on salary. And you don't want to do it in a way, because I've seen it backfire before as well, where candidates come across, they're like, I want 30K extra pay rise. You have to be realistic as well, and always trust like the person that you're working. If it's a recruiter, like trust them and telling them what you're on, because a lot of candidates will say, I don't want to tell you what I'm on. Like, well, look, if you can't, trust me, then I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. But you'll always, you want to kind of have that discussion around salaries, because if you're going too under or too over, it's probably just not going to stand to you, because the client's always going to ask, like, or want to know like the pay scale that they were on previously. And yeah, a lot of people just aren't really kind of out to get you, is what I'm trying to say. So just work with them. And yeah.
Beautiful. Well, words of wisdom. I love it. Thank you, Shauna, for your time and your words of wisdom. This is amazing. I think I'm gonna get so much value from this, and so will the audience. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been so fun. I've really, really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it. I'm going to stop this now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Fiery Femmes. If this resonated, share it with a woman in your life because we rise higher when we rise together. Don't forget to follow and review. It helps more women access the tools and conversations that build wealth and confidence. For more career and financial empowerment, come hang out on Instagram and YouTube at Fiery Femmes. I'll see you in the next episode. RSU, options, ESPP, ESOP, ISOP. What do they even mean? When I was working in tech, no one could really explain in simple terms what my tax implications were from the equity in my compensation. There were times that I had to explain to the accountants what I mean. It took about 3 tax returns to find an accountant who knew what I was talking about. This is why I created equitytax.ai, an easy-to-use AI-powered app to help you calculate tax payable based on your equity. Try it out today at equitytax.ai.